By the sound of it, you can tell it is that time. And once again, many, many thanks for the fellas for being in studio. It is the SHOPO Hour. 521-8383, telephone number. Connect with our gentlemen in studio. And as soon as the gentlemen show up, we'll introduce them. But the fellas we have now are here in the room. Cannot wait for it. Brother Nick, aloha to you.
Good morning. Thanks again for having us.
It's a pleasure. Brother Steve.
Rick, always happy and grateful to be here with you and your listeners. Thanks.
My goodness. And we're ready, Brother Mark.
Hey. Happy Monday, Rick.
I like that. Hey. Hey.
Happy Monday.
All right. It is a happy Monday. First of all, I want to check in with you fellas. How was the week since we saw each other last? Was there anything that stood out for you? Observationally, experience, feedback, anything you'd like to share before we jump in? Nick?
Yeah, I'd like to say, obviously there was a big event out in District 8 at the Boat Harbor. 2 people were unfortunately murdered. 2 other people got injured pretty seriously. This is very serious business. This is the kind of work we do. And unfortunately, when these things happen, it's a tragedy. But at the same time, law enforcement is out there to investigate and to try and recoup the situation for the victims and get justice and also keep the neighborhood safe.
Yeah, that was a heck of a story. Yeah. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Brother Steve?
Rick, I was just thinking about how important community involvement is with police investigations. We had talked last episode about the Kauai fugitive, and could he possibly be getting help from people? And sure enough, saw in the paper the other day that someone got hooked up for aiding and abetting, assisting. I don't know what the actual charge was, but it came to fruition that somebody indeed, and the story went on to elaborate that there could be additional arrests made in what was going on Kauai.
And the news literally broke while we were on the air that he was apprehended at that time. Brother Mark?
Yeah, so I forgot to mention last week, at Bill Sapolo's service, I ran into Felix Gassman, right? So he's doing really, really well, and he's going to be fitted soon for a prosthetic. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. So, but he's doing well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And thank you for updating. And that's what the SHOPO Hour is: talking story, but covering a lot of ground. I want to go back to the Waianae situation. Is there any indication of who, why, how, motive, etc., and if anybody else aside from the victims were affected in any way? Is there any more detail we can share regarding the story, Nick?
At this point in time, I think if we did know details, it wouldn't be appropriate to share them just for the sake of keeping the investigation pure and the integrity of the investigation correct. But I will say that if there is anybody out there that knows information about the situation, witnesses or anything else, please come forward. Please reach out to the police department and tell us what you know so we can get this solved.
Initiated by a call 911.
Yes, apparently initiated by calls 911 calls for service from people at the Boat Harbor who overheard essentially an affray involving what they thought was gunshots.
Yeah. Are you experiencing more encounters with firearms? Because on the Big Island, we now have a situation where police, unfortunately, were, quoting, indiscriminately fired upon, which means to me just out of nowhere, a guy starts shooting at police officers. And they defend themselves, and they negated the threat to them. But are you experiencing more out on the field, Steve? Are you hearing more encounters?
I haven't heard about anything quite like that. As far as officers being basically, I would call that maybe an ambush, right, Rick? I haven't heard that. But bad guys have access to guns. Bad guys do have access to guns. And this is obviously a very safe community, but we've been on the show many times that, this is Hawaii, but crime does happen here. And we do our best to solve crime, prevent crime from happening, and working with the community to find offenders. But again, what happened out at the Waianae Boat Harbor, it just reminds people to be aware, be alert, and, nothing good happens after midnight usually.
That's why I'm never out.
That's my motto.
Dude,
I mean,
nothing.
Yeah.
Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what Steve was saying, the bad guys are going to get the guns. So you can make whatever laws you want for guns, and you can make whatever safe spaces you want. Bad guys are still going to get the guns and still going to do bad things. Do I think it's the Wild West out there? Just anybody I don't think this is random. I think, there's definitely a backstory to it. So I don't think people are just going out there just shooting random people. So I'm pretty sure when the investigation all comes out, we're going to see there's a big backstory to this.
I think the thing that's unsettling is, and I'll go back to the Big Island story, any moment, any time, any day, you're exposed and vulnerable because you will, almost 100% of the time, it's a surprise, unanticipated, no apparent intention being demonstrated, but violence lurks around every call, every response, and I try and empathize as much as I can of what that, there has to be a touch of anxiety countered with, of course, experience, professionalism, training, but back of the mind, I would be thinking, goodness. Nick, how does that translate to duty day after day after day?
I think every call we go to, it's always in the back of our minds. And I think my training for that, especially all the time in the academy that I spent and then in the FTEP program afterwards with really good field instructors that I had, I can't tell you how much emphasis goes into officer safety in the training portion initially of the work that we do to build ourselves up to become police officers here in Honolulu. Every day, every situation, every scenario, it's just constantly beat into you. Be careful, always be vigilant, always look out for things. Don't take the call for granted. That's something that I used to tell people when I was a trainer was, just because you hear one thing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. Okay, mm-hmm. So don't overthink it, but at the same time, always be prepared for anything that can happen. And sometimes the most innocuous situations end up being the most dangerous things you could possibly be in.
Yeah. We have uniforms that identify us as police. Yeah. We drive marked police cars that identify us as police, and that's important. But at the same time, Rick, the bad guys know where we're at. Obviously, there's times and moments where we're a lot more discreet. But for the most part, if you're a patrol officer, everybody, you're visible, and that's important. But at the same time, Rick, it goes to, like Nick was saying, officer awareness. A lot of times if you see two cops talking in a spot, they're faced different directions. And that's so they can have each other's backs. Usually if cops are together talking, they're not faced the same way. And this is just little subtle stuff that just sharing with the community. There's a reason why sometimes when cops get together, they're parked a certain way, or one's facing one way, one's facing another. There's nothing random about that. That's done by design, right? That's done by design, just so nobody can sneak up. And it's been a minute since we talked about that. If we remember back, remember what was happening? The cops got ambushed in New York in their squad cars.
Oh, yeah.
We're going back. Since we're talking about this, I was thinking, oh, yeah, wait a minute. It'd been a minute since that's happened. But again, that has occurred. And
It's not dissimilar. I mean, an analogy, I never sit with my back to a door. I don't. And if I'm out and about, it's just I want to be aware, surroundings, where, who, and such. Mark?
Bottom line, complacency kills. If you're complacent, it could kill you, right? So I used to treat everybody as if they have a knife or a gun until you could prove otherwise. And you got to stay safe. You got to go home to your family, but don't be complacent out there. And that's what, unfortunately, some guys get hurt because they're complacent. So
I think and thanks for that point. That's so very important. And then I'm going to speak for many that are listening now. That's where we find the frustration of a Supreme Court decision and then local interpretation of limitations, access, and despite being vetted, despite all the training, despite what you need to do to qualify, is that you're still relegated from not being able to perhaps defend yourself, your family, in certain areas designated by local decision makers. And there's many that are listening that see that as a circumvention of their right to do so. When you have conferences and talk with officers and leaders in other communities that do have carry concealed, Florida, Texas, other areas, is the feedback from them, oh my gosh, you just never know. Everybody's packing. Or is it just, you know what? This is a benefit because criminals never know if the other guy has or has not.
From my experience, I could tell you, law enforcement professionals who I've spoken with and also friends I know who live on the mainland, everybody seems to treat it very respectfully and very seriously. Mm-hmm. From their point of view, they actually see it as a benefit, which is something that some of us in our culture here in Hawaii, we see as foreign, but to them, it's an everyday occurrence. And for the people who, like Major says, who are treating it correctly, who are doing it legally, who are possessing mm-hmm. things legally, they see it as a benefit to themselves and their community.
Gotcha. Yeah. Steve?
Rick, I think the disclaimer is there are just some people in our community that are not going to be comfortable with firearms, and that's fine. It's not their thing. They're not familiar with it. They're uneducated about it, and they think they're dangerous. Fine. Okay. Don't buy any, and don't have any. No problem. But I can tell you, this is my opinion now. As a street cop, as a police officer, I am more than fine with law-abiding citizens purchasing firearms, training themselves under stress. So in the moment where possibly lives are at stake, specifically their own, their home or property themselves, and they want to take action, they have that ability. Nick and I have traveled. Law enforcement officers, those professionals, have never said to us that they wish their particular states did not have a form of concealed carry. Mm-hmm. That has never come up in any conference, speaking with any law enforcement officer, that they have said, I wish my community didn't allow law-abiding citizens to have guns. That's straight talk. Okay? Now, I understand that we have things that have come into law, and it is what it is. But I'll say this. Law-abiding people are the ones that abide the laws, which is why they're law-abiding. The bad guys or the criminals snub the laws, and they don't listen, right? No matter what you do, okay? No matter what your position is on gun control and where we should have it and where we shouldn't, the bad guys are not going to listen to that. That's the takeaway. But to come full circle, Rick, with what you're talking about, Nick and I, we've gone to the conference. Never have I run into, or Nick either, a law enforcement professional that has said, we have concealed carry or even open carry, and we wish it wasn't happening. Never heard it.
Wow. Brother Mark?
Yeah, same thing. I have friends working in jurisdictions that have open carry, concealed carry, no problems whatsoever. Why? Because the people that are authorized to carry are responsible, right? They have to go through all the rigmarole to get this thing. And like Steve says, the criminals, they don't care. They are not responsible, right? So you're talking about responsible people carrying these things. And we haven't had any problems with them, if you really think about it.
So criminals aren't walking into a gun store and purchasing a firearm. Where are the guns coming from?
Currently, I'd say they're probably coming from two places. They're obtained either through theft or illegal sale, or they're manufactured illegally.
Ghost guns?
Yes.
Wow. Plentiful number now in our midst?
From what I've seen, they're being encountered for sure. We're encountering them.
Yeah. And that's the part that fuels a desire to defend oneself, because as I described earlier with your role and responsibility and your differentiation, because you're marked and identified via uniform and squad cars, etc. If a guy's taking his family out and they're in a part of town that unfortunately someone dude, it's just that's a natural inclination to want to defend yourself and have that ability when you've got all the rules on you and the others play by no rules. That's not a fair landscape.
So, the other thing, Rick, too, is these politicians recently, they went berserk with all this safe space stuff, and they got that stuff passed pretty damn fast, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't you pass something and hammer the criminals? Why don't you make a law, pass it just as fast as you did this safe space crap, right? And make a mandatory minimum. You caught with a gun, or you use a gun in a commission of a crime, mandatory 5-10 years. Mandatory. No, there's no probation. None of that community service crap. Why don't you do that instead of going after the responsible people?
7:24 in the morning. Well, we're about halfway done. Just goodness. Thank you, gentlemen, very much for the conversation. We do have Chad on the line. Give me a moment, Chad. I'm going to take care of primetime traffic and a little bit more. Chad will be first in line with your calls. I'd like to welcome you back. It is the SHOPO Hour. As promised, let's go to Chad here in Honolulu. And let me make sure I got you online, Chad. And you're on the SHOPO Hour. Good morning. Once again, Chad, a very good morning to you.
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you, Rick. Thank you to the HPD officers for having this venue. It's a really, really good program.
Thank you.
I wanted to change gears a little bit, talk about HPD training.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got the privilege to go to an HPD recruit graduation. I mean, you guys put on a really good graduation ceremony at Kamehameha Schools. Number one was that, the program is like a 6-month rigorous training program. That was interesting. Number two was that the initial class started off with about 19, but only 9 graduated that night. And number three was that there was a recruit graduate that was a police officer in another state that had to go through the entire program for HPD. Just want to get your thoughts about our training program and how it relates to other states in comparison. I'll take your comments off the air. Thank you.
Appreciate the call, Chad. Thank you very much for them. And gentlemen, who would like to jump in first? Brother Nick?
Thanks for the call. So you're spot on. The experience in the academy here lasts for about 6 to 6.5 months. It is a very rigorous program. Obviously, there's an attrition rate. If the class started with that number and ended with a different number, it means that it's not for everybody. And you may be able to pass the initial examinations, but you may not pass everything that the academy requires of you to pass. And furthermore, you may realize that this is some pretty serious business, and it may not be for me. That does happen. I started with a class of, I think, 86, and we graduated 62, so that was a pretty decent attrition rate in and of itself. As far as the officer who was from another department, other jurisdictions on the mainland, and HPD is just starting to do this, have what they call lateral transfer programs, which means that if you are a law enforcement officer in, say, Honolulu, for example, and you decide you want to work in a jurisdiction in Texas, that jurisdiction may allow you to laterally transfer over and not do a complete retraining in their academy like anybody who would be brand new to the profession would have to do. Now, not every jurisdiction is the same. Some places don't allow that at all. And for a while, Honolulu Police Department was like that. In fact, for a long time, Honolulu Police Department wouldn't even let people from like Kauai Police Department or Hawaii Police Department transfer over and have their training kind of pre-qualify them. It didn't work that way. A class just started a little while ago that has its first lateral transfer officer in a newer program. And perhaps one day that when the department's here, they could kind of explain all of the nuances of the lateral transfer program to you. But essentially, he is being expedited to a certain extent. The training that he's receiving is modified. And I think the goal is to have those types of officers get sort of expedited through things so that we can get them onto the road faster, because obviously they already know quite a bit of the job. So in those kind of circumstances, sorry to be long-winded, but in those kind of circumstances, it's more about getting them acclimated to our laws here in the state, our ordinances, which are kind of universal, but you have different nomenclature to it.
Yeah.
And then getting them to understand some of the basics of how this department operates and how its officers are expected to perform versus where they came from.
Is there any lateral transfer of rank or of seniority that has been established in another department? Is any of that, or is it start at the very beginning, just like a regular rookie officer?
So as far as rank goes, the answer is no at the moment.
Okay.
However, if you do transfer from another department in the county, there are certain things that carry over with you as far as time that you've accrued or what type of pay rate that you're at when you come into the department.
Gotcha. Anything to add, Mark, Steve?
I think it's great that Chad went to a recruit graduation. We didn't get a chance to ask him if he actually knew anybody that was up on the stage. But how cool is it that a member of the community was like, hey, I'd like to go check that out. I think that's fabulous. And the second thing, Rick, and we've talked about this, police departments are hurting for qualified candidates and applicants. And anything that our agency within the 4 counties can do to attract qualified individuals is a good thing. So if the lateral program, specifically with HPD, can gain some traction, we're all behind it.
Excellent. Brother Mark.
Yeah, so like Steve said, the recruit graduations are open to the public, and it's really nice to see, because these recruits, these graduates, I mean, they put a lot of hard work in, man. So it's a very proud moment for them and their families. But a member of the public just to go see the ceremony is really, really nice. Is
there a dominant reason for not completing as a recruit?
There are a few that are kind of synonymous in every class. First of all, is injury. The academy is a very, very physically demanding program, and it's also a paramilitary organization. So it's kind of a hybrid of boot camp drill instructor meets sort of like college classes at the same time. So it's not uncommon for people to get injured. And another common theme is just like I said earlier, people realize, whoa, this is a real serious game. And the moment that you're in your first few use of force type situations, or you're drawing a rubber gun or you're in a fist fight with somebody. It may be the academy, but we're trained to go 100% all the time over there. So the chances of you getting hurt or realizing, I don't want to get hurt, it's right in your face right when you start.
I would imagine generationally there are many who have never taken a punch or given a punch. Steve?
Well, if you enter this profession, you better understand that that's going to either happen to you or you're going to have to give one. It's just a matter of time. And Rick, just to get a little bit more direct, how do people fail out of the police academy? Couple things. There's an academic portion to the training. There's a classroom and blocks of instruction. There are, at least when I went through, there were weekly examinations that you had to pass. And if you didn't pass, you got a make-up opportunity. And if you didn't do that, then it wasn't your time. Also, firearms. You have to be proficient on different firearms manipulations, accuracy, whether it's the shotgun, the rifle, the pistol. You don't pass that, that's another issue. EVOC, the driving the police car on the track. Are you doing that? Are you doing the control and arrest tactics? There are actually numerous blocks of instruction that a recruit could be deficient in. They're given remedial training. Please understand, it's not, you're not doing it, get out. It's okay. We've identified, and again, I'm not speaking for the training cadre, but they're great at what they do. Just there is remedial training given for that recruit that is struggling in a particular area, but if they still can't pull it together, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think as a community, and I say this delicately, if there were 30 people that started the police academy and 30 people graduated, I'm sorry, something's not quite right. We want to get through as many people as we can, but we'd be doing the community a disservice if we just kind of rubber stamped people. Can't do it. It's too much of a liability. And actually, 19 started and 20 graduating. Those are good numbers. When I came through back in 06, 07, I mean, we've started in the 80s and graduated 25.
Got it.
Okay, and I mean things change.
Yeah.
Things change, but again, the police academy is arduous. Nick made great points. People think it's not for them, but again, there are several blocks of instruction that the recruits need to show a proficiency in, and if they don't, it is what it is.
Mark, I have a moment, but your thoughts over the years?
Yeah, my class, we started 61, graduated 33. But if you look at a police officer, everything on that officer's belt and uniform, they must be proficient in and pass, right? So, like Steve said, there's a lot of things that they could flunk out at, right?
So the takeaway, at least what I hear, one is apply to be an HPD officer. Take the invitation, go online, learn more about it, because either way, you're going to be tested and you're going to be proven. Yeah. And if you continue on and graduate, understand that you have endured and you have triumphed over what is a very seriously challenging, decidedly so for obvious reasons, an amazing experience. So
a rewarding career. I mean,
please,
it's awesome.
Absolutely. We're 7:38 in the morning. News Radio 830 KHVH. It is the SHOPO Hour. Your call's coming up, and we're going to chat more with the fellas in studio in a moment. Welcome back. We went so far over time, it's time to take a break. No, I'm just kidding. It actually is, but it is 7:42 in the morning, and it is the SHOPO Hour. Before I transition, just briefly, what is the mission of the SHOPO Hour from your perspective, Vice President of SHOPO?
Well, Rick, I tell you, we're always happy and grateful to be here, Rick. The purpose of this radio program is where we can come in with you, have a talk story and a frank discussion about what's going on, things top of mind related to law enforcement and public safety. Yeah. Hoping if we're doing things the correct way, your listeners feel a little bit more connected with the men and women that wear the uniforms, that wake up every day and give their best to serve the communities in Kauai, on the Big Island, Maui, and here in Honolulu. We felt that law enforcement doesn't always get an accurate voice. If they even get a voice, it might not be accurate. And we're hoping that we can come on the show, answer questions, straight talk, straight answers, and really build a relationship with your listeners statewide that tune into you.
How do we stay connected with you?
Sure. Please come visit us at shopohawaii.org from our website. You'll find out what's going on with us, what we're involved with. And then from the website, you can reach other platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
What I'd like to do is bring up, and this is a statutorily mandated report, disciplinary report to the legislature. If someone hears offhand that there is an HPD disciplinary report required to be submitted to the state government, I would imagine that there would be assumptions of, oh my goodness gracious, well, this is going to be, and it must be, and there's so, and so I took it upon myself to review the 2022 legislative disciplinary report. What I found was very interesting. Yes, there were one, maybe two, that rose to a felony category, and those were cited, detailed, and status. The vast majority, let me preface this, we're all imperfect in every job, everything that we do. I know I am. I would guarantee people listening say, I'm not perfect either. But we don't have, every time we blow our nose incorrectly, or every time we, knock a vase over and it gets reported, publicized, reviewed by the state legislature, because what I found was that you had incidents that would be somebody posted on Facebook an offensive statement or something of that nature. Somebody was involved where there was a pushing incident, when in fact the end of the investigation showed nothing was there. I want folks, first of all, to read and seek out, because I think it shows two things. whenever HPD is called into question because of behavior and activity, that oftentimes the amplification is up here to a 12, the substance is down here at a 2. The other part about it is the transparency of what you, your members, and officers at large are exposed to. You are wide open, transparent books that is subject to this guy, this gal, that organization, this, it, to pile on and be hypercritical. And I asked you, Mission, I'm hoping that in some way we put a perspective on what is reported, what is submitted, and what actually takes place day to day. So, that said, it's I don't know about necessity. It is a statutory requirement, and I would encourage folks to take a look to get a full view of when disciplinary report is invoked. Thoughts?
So I'd like to start by saying, yeah, absolutely. You know, our badges are not licenses for us to take advantage of situations or get away with things. I think that legislative actions or reports, I should say, are a necessity. We do believe in transparency as law enforcement officers, and that's just the name of the game, right? To start the conversation, I'd say, you know, we are scrutinized so heavily as law enforcement, it's not even funny. Imagine a situation where you're bound by a standard of conduct, which not only regulates what you do on duty, but it regulates how you live off duty as well. Right. Mm-hmm. Add to that the fact that everything we do is documented somehow. It's recorded, it's written, it's memorialized in one way or another. You said earlier that police officers are ambushed, that they're attacked. Everywhere we go, on top of it, we're a moving target no matter what. Always trying to figure out whether or not somebody has the best of intentions or the worst of intentions. And the period at the end of the sentence, we wear a camera that we're required to activate at almost all times, 24/7. Mm-hmm. And if that camera footage isn't there for whatever reason, we're questioned on it, and we have to justify why it's not there. It's a difficult job, and it's made much more difficult by the need for transparency. And I think a lot of officers are more than willing to try and meet you halfway on that. But at the same time, I can guarantee you, and I'll just say it, there is not another profession out there like this where the level of being able to see what we do and then criticize what we do as a result of the freedom to see it is anything like it at all. Nothing.
Well put. Mark?
I don't know of any other profession that's subject to this type of microscope. Think about it, right? How about we do this to the politicians? Could we maybe have them be a little more transparent? But one thing the discipline report does do is show how we do police our own, where we don't shove stuff under the rug. I mean, our professional standards office, they do very, very thorough investigations. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, and these two guys to my left could probably agree, is sometimes they go over the top, you know, where they don't have to go as deep as they do, but they do because of the public, you know, transparency. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's all I got to say about that.
There we go. Tell you what, we are at 7:49. There was a call, but I'm going to turn it over to Steve for a thought on this line. I'll take a break, and then we'll come back. Go ahead, Steve.
No, Rick, I was just going to say you very eloquently kind of summarized the report. And what I was hearing from you is that what you were reading as a member of the community was that the offenses were not as egregious as you might think when you hear disciplinary report. When you hear disciplinary report, for whatever particular reason, I think people's brains go to this high level of improprieties, inappropriate conduct, criminal stuff, whereas you can see in that report, you have, I don't want to minimalize it, but you have some minimal stuff that's reported. Look, As a labor union, we understand reporting statistics. We were actually against, though, publishing officers' names. We felt that was a little bit over the top. We felt so why we condone reporting statistics, we were against, as a labor organization, broadcasting our members' names. We fought against that. It didn't go our way. So let the community know that. Nick was spot on. There is no profession that is scrutinized more and armchair quarterbacked than our profession. But you know what? That's okay, Rick. We get up every day, we do the job, and we accept that. Please understand something. We're not complaining about it. If we didn't like this profession, we can leave. We're just straight talk, matter of fact, saying this is what goes on in our world. This is how it happens, and this is what we think about it.
Very well put. Thank you, gentlemen, for addressing it. And we are going to take a very short break. It's already 7:51 in the morning. Okay, mic's on. We were just conversing about football yesterday. We're already in the home stretch, just about 4 minutes or so remaining. I want to thank you for the frank conversation during this hour. And I think it fulfills what you had stated before. Just talking openly, there's no agenda, there's no filtering. It's just how it is with the topicality that we had today. Before we go, I saw on the homepage, SHOPO, that a fund is continuing for helping Maui PD. Wanted to check in to see how it's working and to encourage people to continue to support.
Sure. So, Rick, if you do come visit us at shopohawaii.org, you'll be able to donate through PayPal to our officers in Maui that did lose their homes. And we've gotten, as a labor organization, we've gotten phenomenal support from other police unions across this country. We are affiliated with several large organizations that are coming to us. PORAC, NAPO. You can come visit us, and it'll show you kind of what those organizations are about. But the outport of supporting has been overwhelming. We've given some financial assistance to our members on Maui. We're going to continue to do that. That'll be an ongoing process for a period of time. And we just want to thank the community for their support. And I would be remiss if we didn't thank the community also for helping the Sapolu family. We recently closed out our drive for that, and we want to thank the community for that. And we'll be presenting a check later, possibly this week, to the family for that.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah,
wonderful. We're in final thought stage, and I'll start with Brother Mark. What you'd like to leave us with today?
Off topic, but happy birthday to my dad, 94.
Wow! Come on now.
How's that? Yesterday.
Wow!
Nice.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mark's dad. Happy birthday to you.
I'll leave you with that.
That's awesome. Tremendous. Brother Nick?
HPD is hiring. So getting back to that call from a little while earlier, if you're interested, please reach out, try it. We have teams from our human resources department out there going to high schools, going to colleges, going to job fairs. We have online methods where you can apply as well. So if you're interested, try it. And if you make it, trust me, it's going to be the most rewarding career you've ever had in your life.
Excellent. Thank you very much, brother. One final question. Kind of bury the lead in the seriousness in the last few moments. But, Brother Steve.
Where's this going? Here we go.
No, the music's already on. I don't know if you have Ginger or Marianne. Go.
Marianne, but ultimately Wonder Woman Linda Carter. Tops them both.
How can you commingle two completely different television shows?
I'm dating myself a little bit. Linda Carter trumps them both.
Wow, you brought up satisfying yourself and Donald Trump in the same response. That's amazing, brother. Amazing. Brother Steve.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you so much.
Okay, brother.
Brother Mark.
Okay, have a good week.
Brother Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We will rejoin the boys next week at this time. Love this segment and enjoy it immensely. Coming up next, Dr. Panos Prevedoros in studio taking your calls. We'll be back.